Oisches. So up till now, we explained previously, the previous ois, the Rebbe explained that in order to get the hamshocha milmailo into malchus, and malchus in of itself, avodas hanivroim, that needs to be through tefillah l'Moshe. So why is it tefillah l'Moshe? Because it is both. It's Moshe, which has hamshachas ha'atzmus. It's also tefillah, which is bringing it down into a level of malchus itself, not as something added to malchus, but within from malchus, from the level of tefillah. Now the Rebbe is going to explain that there's actually a higher madrege that we're mamshich through tefillah. Not only does the hamshacha come down to lamato mitzad demato, but it also comes down from a higher level. When it comes through the avodas hamato, the avodas the Rebbe will explain now is based on the mato, even not only the level of memala kol almin, not only seviv kol almin, and not even atzmus, but when atzmus comes through avodas ha'odam, there's even an elevation in the level of bligvul. Let's look inside. Deeper, more than this, we can say the advantage when the hamshocha comes through tfilas Moshe's prayer, relative to the hamshacha which comes just milmailo lamato from Moshe. It's not just how the hamshacha, the way the hamshacha comes down. There's actually a higher hamshacha. Shahamshacha sha'adei tfilas Moshe shayeches yisel lahamata kenal. That the hamshacha that comes through tfilas Moshe has more connection to the mata, as we said earlier. Elogam baha hamshacha atzma, but also the hamshacha itself comes from a higher place, as the Rebbe will continue to explain now. And the Rebbe explains that everything in the world hinges on the avodah of man. And therefore, the avodah of man brings down all the hamshachas, even the hamshachas, which is bligvul to a higher level. Inhu the hatam al zeh shekol mash nivra b'sheishis yimei b'reishis tzorich tiyukon. What is the reason that everything that was created in the 6 days of creation requires correction? Hu ki kavonas habriya hi b'shvil avodas ha'odam. Because the intent of creation is because of service of man. Therefore, man has to be in person. The person always, the human being has to be involved because he is the reason for creation. That's why everything that goes on needs the avodas ha'odam. That is why the world was created in such a way that its correction comes through the service of man. Through the person's participation, the human being becomes a partner with Hashem in the act of creation. And this, that we need the Maisa Ha'odam, that this was the Kavanah, and that's why there is lacking, so that the person should partake. This is also the reason, Alzeh, Sheishavus Ha'olamis Mehamalchus Hoisa Alidei HaTzimtzum, that the way the worlds, Bria Yitzira Asiya, the way they came about their being from Malchus, was through a symptom, through a restriction. Malchus was lacking and brings about avodas ha'odam. Shenechsar ha'oir mibechinas ha'malchus. There was lacking of the light of the level of malchus, that the malchus had the level of a symptom, of a miut hayereach, a level of chisorin. As the pasuk, when the pasuk says ato osisas hashamayim, it says ato without a hey. That means that it's missing the hey partsufim. Ato sis shmaim goimer ato choser hey. The zeh malchus nasis moker lahavis eso ilamus. This, that malchus becomes a source to bring into being, to create all worlds. Osisas hashamayim. Ato choser hey osisas hashamayim. That is by the fact that from malchus was missing, was lacking from it the 5 partsufim. Hey, the hey is missing. Ato choser hey. Ato lacking the hey. Yes, loymar. We can say that chisorin shahoya b'hamalchus shemimeno nivra ha'ilam. That this lacking that was in malchus, from malchus the world is created. That is the root and the cause why the world is lacking, that there needs to be the participation. L'sake, the world is lacking. The kol mashe nivra b'sheshis mebreshis tzarich tikun. Everything that was created in the 6 days of creation requires correction. Why is that? It's in order sheyiyeh shemilu hachisorin the malchus yiyal yidei avodas ha'odam. It's all for that purpose, that there should be lacking, and who is going to fill that lacking of malchus through avodas ha'odam, the service of the person, the human beings are going to make up that lacking of malchus. The Rebbe says, and to add that when we talk about lacking and we talk about avodas ha'odam, this doesn't just speak about the Eir of Memala Kol Almin. Even though the Eir of Memala Kol Almin is more directly affected by the lacking, but there's actually also a lacking in the Sovev Kol Almin. So to add, Dagam Shat Simtzum Hoyorak Behoira Shayich Loilomes, although that restriction of the light was only in the light which is connected, which belongs to the world, as the level of Memala Ba'ir HaGavul, in the light which is limit, Shoyresh HaMemala, in the root of Memala. And the Rebbe adds, V'gam Ba'ir HaBligvul, but also in the light of Bligvul, which is Shoyresh HaSefer. The Rebbe is going to explain now in the bracket the impact of the Tzimtzum in the Oir HaShayich Lo'ilomis, and the impact of the Tzimtzum as it affects the Oir HaBligvul, the Shoyresh HaSefer. But the Rebbe is going to explain even higher than Sefer, even higher than the Oir HaBligvul in the Etz. Ella, the Rebbe explains on the bracket the difference of the Tzimtzum, the restriction, what it brought into the level of Gavul, and what it brings in the level of Mamala, what it brings to the level of Blikvul, the level of Sefer. The impact of the restriction in the limited, in the light that limited the Mamala, who b'ha'oir atzma is the oir itself, that the oir is restricted and a tzimtzum in the oir. Shenase boy yeridav hagbola, in the oir hagvul, it was made in it a descent and a limitation. V'ad shenase moker lahaves es ha'olames, to the extent that it became a source to bring into being the worlds. This is in the Oir HaGvul. What is the impact of the tzimtzum on the bligvul? That is only the tzimtzum is that it should not, there's no tzimtzum in the Oir itself, but there's a tzimtzum not to shine in the area which became hollow, which is the tzimtzum. The Zehu Shebe'igul HaGodul. This is that in the great circle, Oir HaBlikvul, we say Noga Boy HaTzimtzum. The tzimtzum touched it. It touched it in the way, meaning, what does it mean? He touched it. It means that it only shines in the Mokim HaCholol. The Iker Inyan Egiyas HaTzimtzum Hu. What is the idea that the tzimtzum touched it? The restriction is that this light of bligvul should only shine in the igul, and not to go outside. That's it, but there's no tzimtzum in the oir itself. But in the oir itself, in the oir habligvul itself, there was no restriction at all. He didn't even touch it. That for that reason, that's why there can be also the revelation in the olamais, because in the light of bligvul there was no tzimtzum. But Mikol Mokoim, and yet, even though it is an oir which the tzimtzum did not touch directly, we say the tzimtzum was for the lacking, so that the person should correct it. But it seems like in the oir hablikvul there was no tzimtzum. But since the intent of all revelation, this is applicable, but it's shaykh la'olamas. But in the gilui of the etzem ha'oir, we said before, the level of atik, which das is mamshich, which is higher than the gather of olamas. This is even higher than the root of Seviv Kulalmim. This is the Etzem Ha'ir, the level of Das Elyon, the level of Atik, Ubishvil Yisrael. That's for the Yidden. So therefore, Lachain Kam Hamshochas Oir Zeh Hi Al Yidei Avedus Ha'odam. Also extending this light, the light of the etzem ha'oir, which is higher from together oilamis, it comes through avodas ha'odam. So once we establish that it comes mitzad avodas ha'odam, we will see how avodas ha'odam actually impacts and brings down a higher level within the oir, which is l'mayla megeder ha'oilamis. But first, the Rebbe is going to say that because we're saying that everything is impacted, that everything is for the Yidden, that explains also the Maimer which would seem that the Avodas Ha'odam in the three levels is the key to understanding the Maimer when it really seems otherwise. Let's see. He says, so based on this, we can explain what it says in the Maimer. So over there, he talks that generally the revelation that come from above, there is three general steps, three general levels. Mimale Kol Almim is one, the one that fills the world. Seviv Kol Almim, that surrounds the world. Ve'atzmus Ein Sof, and the essence of the Ein Sof, Shalamayla Memaila V'Seivim, which is higher than Memala and Seivim. Gimel Madreges Elu Heim Gimel Ha'avis Shebepasuk Ba'ahavta. And in these three levels of the Gilui Milamayla is the three levels that we talk about the Ave in V'Ahavta in the Shema. Shebepasuk V'Ahavta, which is in the Pasuk V'Ahavta, we say B'chol Levavcha, then we say B'chol Nafshecha, and then we say B'chol Meidecha. Three levels of love corresponding to Mamalei Soiviv and Atzmus Eidin Sof Shalamayla. He explains how. Ha'avad the B'chol Levavecha, the Avad that is with all your heart, he beginas Memalukul Almin. That's the level of Memalukul Almin. The Kivon Shachayis, the beginas Memalukul Almin, Umelumbesh Ba'anivroim B'Pnimiyosam. Since the vitality of the level of Memalukul Almin is dressed up in the created being inside. Memalukul Almin means that it dresses up in an inner, it's a measured according to the people, it fills them. Memalukul Almin. Memalukul Almin can bring the level of B'chol Al Yidei HaHiz Bainus. This is explaining the connection of B'chol Levavcha to Memalukul Almin. That L'chein Al Yidei HaHiz Bainus, through reflection, Nirgash Chayizeh Gam B'nefesh HaBahamis. So this vitality can also be felt in the animal soul. Then we have a Ha'aba, Hi B'chol Levavecha, you have that level of B'chol Levavecha means with both inclination. Since it's talking about reflection and you hear it, it can also be felt nefesh habahamis because this is a level that fills the person. Ha'ava the B'chol nafshecha, but then when after B'chol Levavecha comes to B'chol nafshecha, that is b'bchinas sefer kulam that surrounds them. Since the light that surrounds the world, the level of Sefer Kulamim, is higher than being able to dress up in the world. And therefore, when a person senses that this is the level of B'chol Nafshecha, the Eirin Sof, that he senses the greatness, the wondrous, the distinction of the Eirin Sof, the Seviv, then the love to Hashem, he ba'ifan the Mesiras Nefesh, that's in the way of self-sacrifice. B'chol nafshecha afilu neitlas nafshecha, with all your soul, even if it takes your soul. Sheroitze lotzes mimitzu usei v'lekolel belakus. He desires, he wants to go out from his being, from his existence, and he wants to be included in the infinite Ein Sof. The Avazu hirak b'nefesh halikis, but as opposed to the Ava b'chol levavcha is b'shnei yitzarecha, because over there it's the chayis associated with the atzmachaya, with the level of memalukul almin. But this that is connected to the sensing that he wants to go out of mitzias, he senses that in sof a level of mesiras nefesh, that is only in nefesh halikis. Because the grasping, in a way of recognition and feeling, then the grasping brings to love, the Ein Sof, in the wonders of the Ein Sof, that can only be in the godly soul. That recognition and that sense, Nefesh HaBahamis doesn't participate in that. Because Nefesh Elikis is rooted in Shem Havaya Seviv, it can sense the level of Seviv, and that's why B'chol Nafshecha is connected to Nefesh Elikis. And then finally we have Avad B'chol Meidecha. The Avad B'chol Meidecha Ba'atzmus Ein Sof Shalomaylo Gam Seviv. That's in the essence of the Ein Sof, which is even higher than Seviv. Ki amitis inyan amitzam the true bligvul. We have the level of seviv, but the true bligvul who ba'atzmus Ein Sof is in the essence of Ein Sof, Masha'en Kain, Oir HaSeviv, as opposed to the light that's Seviv, even though it's with Lul, but still, Yesh Boy Ezet Tzir Vagboli, it does have some shape and some limitation. And therefore, Ha'ava Shal Yidei Gilui Atzmus Oir Ein Sof, Ki B'chol Me'idecha B'ligvul. That's why when the Ava, it says B'chol Me'idecha, which comes because you have the revelation of the Atzvus in yourself, even higher than Seviv. The Etzem of yourself, it brings down Hibchol Meidecha, Bligvul, that's the true Bligvul. Now, the Rebbe in the Maimer goes back and says that from this three levels of B'chol Avav, B'chol Nafsh, B'chol Meidecha, we understand what Seviv, Mamala, Seviv, and Etzim. But it's not, the Rebbe asks, it's not that these are explaining now. First, we explained what Mamali and Seviv and the Etzim, then we connected it to but why does the Rebbe say there that now that we know we understand how it is in the worlds above, which seems like the worlds above we knew before, and then we associated that with Chol. But because we're saying that everything hinges on the Avodas Adam, so we start from the beginning. We start with Chol Avav Chol Nafsho, which is the Avodas Adam. And that gives us the explanation about the levels, the way they are in the different level of Oiris and the Giluyim. But Tzarich Lav. Ulachrei Shemavayir Hashayches the Gimul Ha'avis the Gimul Madregas. After he explains in the Maimer the connection of the three levels of love to the three levels of Mamali, Seviv, and the Etzem Ha'ir, which is higher than Mamali, Seviv. And al Messiahim, he concludes, move on in Yonam Shel Gimel HaMadregas. So now he says we can understand the idea of three steps. The Mamali who be slavish by Lumas, Mamali addresses the world, the Seviv who Lamailo mi slapshus. Seviv is higher in slapshus. Abu Shayach Loilumas has a connection. The Atzmas in Sof, ain't never get the Loilumas. The Atzmas in Sof is not even in the boundaries and limitation of the world. Why does the finish the Maimer that now we know when it's just the other way around? Tzarich Lahavin, we have to understand the L'chayra Habir B'Hashaychus, the Gimul Ha'avis, the Gimul HaMadregas, the Lamailo. When did we explain the connection of the three loves, the love of Cholav, Chomash, Chomedecha, to the three levels of above, of Mamali, Seviv, and higher than Seviv, is L'acharei Havonos Inyon in the Gimul HaMadregas. We only know that after we understood the idea of the three levels, and then we associated them with the three Avos. But from the flow of the way these ideas are presented in the Maimer, it appears the Inyan said that this idea Gimel Madreges Eilem Gimel Ha'avis, that these three levels are the three loves, Meisim Biur Gimel Madreges, as if this adds explanation of three levels. Why is he doing that? So how come he says that? And the Rebbe says because it all starts with Avodas Adam, because the Rebbe said before, the Hamshachas from all Inyanim comes because of the Adam. Yesh lemer ma'abiudim as we can say some of the explanation of this. The hatam al zeh sheyeshnam l'maylo gimel madregas. Why is there three levels? Shebehem nichlolum kol hagiluyim. And these three levels all giluyim. So why is there giluyim l'maylo? Ki kol hagiluyim de l'maylo hem b'shvil avodas adam. Because all of the revelations of above is for the service of man. That's why over there we have the three levels. Since in the love of Hashem, which is the main service, is to love Hashem, that's the main service. There is no service like the work of love for Hashem, And there is Yeshnom Gimul Ha'avos. We have generally these three loves. Chol levov, chol b'chol nafsh, chol b'chol meidecho. Lachain, because of Avodas Ha'odam, which is the service, which is the Ava. Ava has three levels. That's why the Eibishter made it in such a way that Klolus Kol HaGeluyim D'Lamailo, that generally all of the Geluyim above, Nechlokim Legimul Madreges, they are divided into three steps: Memale V'Sevev, Ve'erin Sof Shel Mailam V'Sevev, the fill the world, surrounds the world, and the Eirin Sof, which is even higher than Sevev. To fit these three avis that the person has, to fit to them the levels of the iris. How could you understand something fully? Is by explaining it from its base and its root. So how do we begin the biur in the mimer of the three steps above? That is, that in them is the three loves. Because this is actually the root. This is the cause why there were these three madregas. They came because of the three levels of Abba, because everything is because of the Giluyim L'Mailar, because the Avodah Sod. Yesh Leimar. So we can say, what is the Atam B'Pnimis Yonim? The reason Pnimis Yonim. So why Take do these three levels elicit these three level in Ava, bring about the three Hamshochas, the creation of these three different Oires? Alzesh Hamshochas Vigilui in Gimel Yon the Male, the Savior of Asmus and Insof. That how these three levels of Malach Himself, why they Gimel Ha'avis, the Bechol Levav Chol Nafsh Chol Meidecho, who it comes through the three different loves of Levav Chol Nafsh Chol Meidecho is Ki Hakavone Bechol HaGiluyim, because the intent of all of the revelations, He Bichdei Al Yidyodam Tiyeh Achakach B'riyas Olam. The purpose of all this is so that the world later on is created from these giluyim. V'lochein. So giluyim are equated to creation. Creation we know already is for the human being. But here we're saying that all the giluyim are also for creation. So it turns out that all of the giluyim are for the human. V'lochein. K'moi shebriyas ha'ilam ha'isa. Just like the creation of the world was in a way that all matters that were created, the chosed that were lacking, they should be fixed through the service of man. So that the person becomes a partner to Hashem in the act of creation. Similar to this, is as it is related to the revelations of above. That they're being brought the way they were extended, brought into being, extended these oiras, that revelation should come through the work of the person. The person should work for those giluyim. In order for the partnership of the person to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the act of creation, not just in the world we live in, but there should be participation also in the revelation of above, for which was created through them, through those giluyim. So therefore, that not only the actual world when was created to participate the person, but the person should be a participant to bring down the giluyim, the oiris, which create world. Vikivon sheikar avodas ha'odom hu avas habayid leispulchana kibulchana derechibus kinal. Since the main service of the person is the love of Hashem, as we quoted before, there's no work as the service of love. Lachein hagimul the Gilu, the Gimel Hamadreges Hanal. Therefore, the revelation of these three steps, Shabahem Nechlolum Kolon Yondamaylo. Basically, this includes all matters. So we divide it into the three levels of Shevim, Malin, higher than Malin. While Yidei Hagimul Ha'aves the B'chol Levavcho U'B'chol Nafshcho B'chol Meidecha. That is through the three loves of Levavcho Nafshcho Meidecha brings down all the Gilui. While Yidei Shainyonim Delmaila Nimshochim Umizgalim Al Yidei Avodas Odom, since the aspects of above are extended and revealed through the work of the person, the Avodas Odom brings the Giluyim. Nase Bahem Aliyah Lamaila Yosef V'Kamoshe Mehem Mitzad Atzmam. There becomes an elevation in them, in these Eiris, than they were. There's a higher Eir when it comes down through the Avodas Odom. Zehu Tefillah L'Moshe. This is Tefillah L'Moshe. The Rebbe goes back, which is not just to bring it down into Malchus, into the world, Mekatzad, the world, but it's to bring down a higher level. The Hamshoch HaSagilu, the Atzmus Eid Ein Sof Shel L'Maylo Misevev. This, that revelation of Atzmus Eid Ein Sof that's brought down, which comes from Eid and Sevev. Shehim Shech Moshe b'Malchus, that Moshe brought down in Malchus. Hoysal Yidei Tefillah Davke. It came Davke through Tefillah. Everything comes through the Avodah. Hagam the Kivon Shem Moshe Hu Das Elyon. Moshe L'Cheda didn't need Tefillah. He could be Mamshchit from Das Elyon. Since Moshe Das Elyon, Shemakabel Ma'atik receives Ma'atik. Atzmus Eid Ein Sof Shel L'Maylo Misevev. The Atzmus Ein Sof Higher than Sevev. He had the ability to be mamshech this light in a way from above to below. He didn't need to tefillah l'Moshe, just Moshe. But the reason is but through the fact that the oil that comes down is through prayer. Avodas Odom b'derech milmat l'maylo, through the avodas of the person derech milmat l'maylo. Nishlemes hakavona shebishvila netzel oir. That way, the intent for which the light was separated in the beginning is being completed. In that way is added the elevation, and it adds to the bligvul. That it becomes a greater level in bligvul, that the bligvul is not just as if it is own, through the person bringing it down, through the avodah, nishnal avodah, etzem ha'oir, she'ein shaykh b'tzimtzum b'siluk, that's the essence of the oir, elagam k'moshu mitzad atzmus. Also is because the atzmus, not the etzem ha'oir, but the atzmus himself. Lachein. And that's why binyan ha-malchus shenasa al yidei ha'oir, the building of the malchus that takes place through the oir, k'moshe nimshach al yidei tfilas Moshe, as it comes down from the prayer of Moshe, who binyan adiyad is an internal edifice. So the Rebbe explains over here that the tefillah l'Moshe, not only as he explained previously in the Maimer, that it brings down the malchus mitzad atzma, but this is the whole kavanah. The kavanah is that the Odom should be mamshav this oil. When the kavanah is accomplished and the person brings down the oil, you get not only the etzem oil, but you get mamash the inyan of atzmus itself. Ois Yud Aleph, the Rebbe continues to ask that since the reason we get the tefillah gets us a higher madrege is because it's al yidei avodas ha'odom, it's the work of the lamata, and that was the kavanah. But Moshe Rabbeinu himself, since Moshe Rabbeinu was the Das Elyon, so he didn't need the Avodah L'Cheira to get to this Madrega. He has that Madrega Mil Maila Lamata. So it turns out that the Tfilas Moshe is only beneficial to Knesset Yisrael, to Malchus, because over there it comes through their Avodah, but not to Moshe himself. Yudalav, it's we need to explain the Ilu Shenase B'Hagiluyim, the Lamayla Lidei Avodah Sodom, who the advantage that takes place in the revelation that comes from above when it comes through Avodah Sodom is Be'ikar, is mainly Kishaham Shocha V'Hagilu Shalahem Hilal Yidei Avodah Sodom. How do you draw it down? How do you reveal it? The person has to work. So since it's work of the person who doesn't have it, and he works for it, so that brings the advantage. But the kiv on the shali de tfilas Moshe ho yaham shocha v'hagilu. But what did Moshe Rabbeinu's davening to extend it and revelation to whom? Urak b'neger Knesset Yisrael. That is as it relates to Knesset Yisrael, Yidden in general, Knesset Yisrael kipshutei, literally Knesset Yisrael, v'gam suras amalchus, no suras amalchus. But as far as Moshe and Shaykh L'chayda doesn't apply to say that the Hamshocha, the Gilu came through his prayer. It didn't need his prayer to bring down this level because Moshe Rabbeinu was at that level. Moshe is wealthy. The Inyan ha'ashir, the idea of ashir, hu shemirim etzle b'gilui, kol ha'giluyim, that by him all of the revelations shine openly. Ba'afilu ha'gilui the atzmus oirin sof, even the revelation of atzmus oirin sof shalamayla mishayichas le'olamais, that is higher than connection to olamais, that also shined by Moshe Rabbeinu. So according to this, so it turns out that the elevation and the addition that takes place in the light through the Tefillah Moshe, that is only, as would seem, only with regards to ways to others, but not legabe Moshe himself. So the Rebbe says no. That actually it helps Moshe as well. The kiv on Moshe hu royan shel Yisrael, since Moshe is the shepherd of Yidden, therefore, if any matter is missing by Knesset Yisrael, it's just as if he would himself be lacking that same matter. In addition to the fact that this pain that the Yidden it's lacking is a very great pain, it's as if he himself is lacking. That's how much the pain is for Moshe Rabbeinu. In Negam Hachisoron the Yisrael, it's not just that the pain because the Yid is lacking, but when the Yid is lacking, when there's a lacking by Yisrael, it is actually he is lacking as well. Moshe be Yisrael hem chad, because Moshe and the Yid are one. Rashi Moshe who Yisrael be Yisrael and Moshe. Moshe is Yisrael and Yisrael and Moshe is one and the same thing. Hagam Moshe even Moshe was Asher, and all the revelations shine by him. But yet, keep on Yisrael Hayu Chasidim Agilu. Since the Yidden they were lacking the Gilu, and it's only through work Tfilos Shel Moshe, the prayer of Moshe is Chadash Agilu Legabom. That's the way the Gilu is renewed by them. Gam Legabe Moshe and this Chadash Agilu Tfilos also Legabe Moshe. That revelation was renewed through the davening. Ulahaisif. Rebbe said to add to this, the Zeshe Moshe Urayan Shel Yisrael. the fact that Moshe is the shepherd of Israel, Zehu inyon ha'ikri, that's the main thing about Moshe. All of the greatness, his advantages, including the fact that he was wealthy, also spiritually, that he is in the level of the supreme das, which receives from Atik, they are secondary. That's Bechinas Chitzonius. They are an external level. Next to the fact, relative to the fact that they were the shepherd of Israel. According to this, we can understand even more. That also with regards to Moshe, the revelation became renewed through the davening. Although because of the wealth of Moshe, the level of Das Elyon, by him, there shined all the revelations even before. Still, this is a new thing through the tefillah. This, that it shined by him all the giluyim even before that, because he's wealthy. That's his externality. But in the to the penimis of Moshe Rabbeinu, the fact that he's a shepherd of Israel, that revelation, the penimis of Moshe, came through tefillah. Therefore, the advantage that comes in the giluyim of above, through the fact that they have been drawn down through avodah tefillah, Moshe also affects Moshe. Likewise, it's in the expanding level of Moshe in every generation. Till to the Frediker Rebbe the Balagula, his main and inner matter was the fact that he was a shepherd of Israel. The matters that takes place by a yid, that becomes the matter of the leader. According to this, we can explain the advantage. That came about the novelty through the redemption of Yutas Kislev and the redemption of Yudbeis Tammuz, which is through the incarceration, that they were imprisoned and they were freed. That is like the advantage of light when it comes from darkness. It would seem as it relates to the leaders, it doesn't apply to say that while they were incarcerated, there was some aspect of darkness. We can move on as it's also understood from the known talk of the Bal Hagula, in relationship to the incarceration of the Alter Rebbe, that the incarceration, the imprisonment, was with his consent, he agreed to it. The Mezem move on. So from that, it's understood. So relative to them, these obstacles and the blocks that the incarceration brings about, it's only externally, because internally they are in charge whether to be in prison or not. So since they did not experience the choshech, because they in Pnimis, they were not in prison, how does this bring about the advantage of the light when there's no choshech? We can say from the explanation in this, the kivon Since the main aspect of the leaders is the fact that they are shepherds of Israel and leaders of Israel. Therefore, the obscurity, the block of the incarceration, which impacted, which was as it relates to the Yidden, to the Israel, that is also a block and a cover, also as a darkness for the Nisim as well. Therefore, the redemption from the incarceration, when that darkness turned to light, this brought about an advantage of the light. We explained earlier, the the connection to the Mizmar of Tefillah L'Moshe, as it relates to the Gula Yutes Kislev V'Stamu, who Heinli Yonim HaProtim She Nemru Mizmar, that applies also to the specific details that were said in this Mizmar in chapter 90 in the Tillim. A Kol Shekain, and for sure has a connection the Klolus HaMizmar, to the idea and the contents of the general. That what is the chapter 90? That's Tefillah L'Moshe, Tefillas Oshir. It's a prayer for Moshe, and the prayer, a wealthy prayer. And based on what was brought down earlier from the Maimed, the Inyan HaShirus, what is the idea of wealth? It's not only de machsede, but it's a level of Ashirus, which is Gilu. De machsedus would be the Elsev Kolal, as we learned earlier. Ashirus is Gilu Atzmus Oidin Sof Shalamaylam Mesev. V'ashayches, the Tfilas Oshir, and the connection of the prayer of the wealthy Medina Ploinis Gzoir Shetibone LaShirus. So why do we say, so what's the connection if it doesn't have a shaykhis to the world B'chlal, but in the Medrash Tilim brought down, that ever brought down, that the connection of the Tfilas Oshir, that there is a destroyed city, build it. That's what the quest was from the Oshir to the king, to Moshe Rabbeinu, to the Ebershter, that it should make Yevichinas Binyan Adead, who Alidei Nimshach Bo Gilad Musen Sof, that the building of Malchus should be an eternal building, is through the fact that it will be revealed at the level of Aser Sof. Yesh Loimar. So, according to this explanation, we can say the Yisrael Ha'oir Shenase Ba'Geula D'Yutes Kislev D'Yut V'Stamuzu. What was the advantage and the light that came about through the redemption of Yutes Kislev V'Stamuz is Hamshochas Gilui Atzmus Oirin Sof Shalamayla Memayla V'Sever, that the revelation and the revelation of the essence of the Sof that's higher than Sever, that's the Ashirus, the Oshir, that is as it relates to V'Stamuz Yutes Kislev, that was the Hamshocha, the revelation of Atzmus Ein Sof, which is higher than Malin Sefer. Yesh Loimar, we can say this: the fact that the redemption of Teskisla Yud Vestamus Hoysaneis Golu Shalamayla Mateva, it was a open miracle which is higher above nature. And yet still it was a miracle which was dressed in nature. And even though the miracle was dressed in the nature, it was in a way it was the nature did not obscure, did not block the miracle. All of the inhabitants of the land can see that this is an open miracle. Because the root of Tavis is name Alikim Mamale. So how come it came about in such a way? It's because we're talking about the place which is higher from Seviv and Mamale. Kishoydish hateva alone hu m'shem elikim mamale. Shoydish anisim hu m'shem havaya sovev. The root of miracles comes from Shem Havaya, which is sovev. Kivon shebahagula yagilu da'atzmus enesof shalamayla m'sovev umemale. Since by the Geula was the revelation of the essence of the yourself, which is higher than sovev male. Hakoyel l'mechaber eshnei, which includes and ties them all both together. That's why the redemption was in a way. The miracle and nature connected together. It was Yichud Havaya V'Elikim. The miracle came down in Teva, and the Teva did not block on the miracle because it came from a place which is higher than Malam Masema, includes them both, the Yichud Havaya V'Elikim. Shloimar, we can say, Shagilu da'erin sof, shalamaylo mesevu umemale ba'chibu, the nes b'tava, the revelation of the Erin Sof, which is higher from Sev Male, in connecting the miracle that comes from Seviv and Tava, that Shorsha Male comes from Male. Urak shenirgash bahem inyan shalamaylo mishneim. It's only that it was sensed by them that there is something which is higher than both. That's the way they connect, by sensing that there's something higher. But the fact that nature itself was in such a way that it didn't block and obscure the miracle, until the extent that also those who opposed, they remained in force. And then yet they were forced to help. And through their strength, they had to help the redemption and freeing the Rebbe. How does that happen? That nature itself, while there is opposition, has to help and recognizes and support the miracle. Is through that in Malchus itself, which is the root of Nivroim, in Malchus was recognized its true root. And the true root, which is higher. Understand more the tie and the connection from this redemption of h'tשכט to the Mizmer Tefillah Moshe Tefillas Osher. The Inyan Tefillas Osher who Medina Ploinis Hulu Gozer Shetibona. There is this country decree that it should be built. Hamshochas Ilu Atzmus Oir Ein Sof B'Malchus. That is bringing down the revelation of Atzmus and Malchus, and that's why Malchus itself got its true Shoyresh the Gil Atzmus. Through this combination of miracle and nature that took place by the redemption, the power was given to all those that follow in the paths of the Balagula. That the belief, Amuna, which is higher than intellect, that's like the level of Nes. That this should also extend into intellect Teva. And that the intellect should not obscure and block the Amunah. That through that, in the Seichel does not object, it doesn't block, and also accepts the Amunah. As far as it relates to the idea of spreading the wellsprings to the outside. That began in the redemption of h'tשכט. And then it was added more in the redemption of Gestamos. through the connection of miracle and nature that was in the redemption. We have been given the power to spread the well springs of the inner of Torah, into the chutz of the above of the world, the level of miracle, into the outside. And in such a way that even when they find themselves on the outside, you can see openly Shehem Hamayonis, the Pnimius HaTorah. Those are the well springs of Pnimius HaTorah, so it doesn't obscure, it doesn't block. The fact that also when they're in the outside, when they find themselves in the outside, it's in a way, they see openly that these are well springs. It's not just because the well springs are open, but it's also because the outside has become he does not block or obscure the well springs. He say to him more than that, it becomes a vehicle to the well springs. This become a preparation for very soon to fulfill the promise of a Nigla Kved Havaya, that the glory of Hashem will be revealed. All flesh will see together. Kipi Hashem Diber, that it was the mouth of Hashem spoke. Shabosar Yira Lukus, that the flesh, the physicality, will be able to see godliness. It's not just because there is a revelation of Kved Havaya, but it's the Basar will see himself. That's the Teva will see the higher. Is the Yichud of Havaya and the Likim, the Yichud from both Nes and Teva together, which comes through the revelation of h'tשכט, Tmuz, the higher level of the Etzem, to build Malchus from the level which is higher than Sefer and Malchus together. Yudala. So by Daber Hashem el Moshe Gomer Daber bnei Yisrael b'yichoi lecha paradum hagomer. So Hashem says to Moshe, tell them to bring a paradum. So yichoi lecha. The Rebbe started off. It's all in the name of Moshe. The fact that the potter is called on the name of Moshe. Agam she'inyan hamiyuchad shebemitzvahs pora adumo u'shachuka shabo she'rotze shemayla v'chochma hu begilu.